Welcome back to the new Yachtsman channel. Today I've got a great guest. This is Hugh, and he's a retired general. And like many of you, he was busy with a very successful career, and he's in the middle of making that transition from working really hard and being the top of his game in his industry, like many of you are. And now he's getting his first cruising boat and going through the trials and tribulations of buying and retrofitting his first boat. So Hugh, maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit. And I think the new yachtsman would like to hear a little bit about what it's like to retire and start boating.
Thanks very much, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here today, and hopefully we'll have some conversation that'll be of use to people that, like me, wish I had listened to somebody else before I bought my boat. I am a retired Major General from the U.S. Army, 41 years. I've owned a boat actually since 2009, but having been an extremely busy person and actually deployed around the world and for much of the last now over 15 years, my boat has not had the attention that it needed from a maintenance or safety standpoint. So I was happy to be able to now, as a retired individual, to be able to spend the time and the income to actually bring my boat up to the condition that I would like it to be, which is allowing me to do some open ocean sailing, the Bahamas, Bermuda. I'd like to get over to Europe and potentially further afield as well.
What did you find it was like when you were first looking for a boat? Did you kind of have an idea of, you wanted this size range and this type of vessel before you started, or were you just starting from the beginning?
Well, we had a previous boat, a 26-foot boat that was actually a custom-made one from the 60s. Had spent a lot of time on that, had a lot of fun with it, spent more money on it than it was worth. But our two kids were growing, and at that point, for us to be more comfortable and be able to go further afield, we decided to buy we went from a 26-foot boat up to a 42-foot Hunter Passage. For us, that decision was based on, we started an internet search like many people do. We had particular boats that looked great on the internet. And then we started the process of actually talking to yacht brokers and trying to find out if we could get onto a boat and take a look at it. That was a fascinating step. So going from the way a boat looks, on the internet for the advertisements and the way it looks in person is a big difference. Now, I had the benefit of having owned a boat for about 15 years prior to purchasing a large boat. But even with that, I can't claim to be any kind of an expert at all. I mean, I could sail up and down the coast of the US and even single-handed on occasion, but I was still kind of a novice in many ways. And I learned usually by making mistakes of a variety of sorts. Thankfully, nothing that ever got me into too much trouble. But yeah, so trying to figure out what a large boat can do for you, should do for you. What is a safe boat? What's a well-built boat? What are the conditions that you need to be looking for? There's an awful lot that I frankly was absolutely ignorant about. I wish I could go back in time and be able to tell my earlier self what I know now after having spent many years fixing the boat that I've got, and particularly a lot just recently.
So would you advise people, maybe instead of buying a boat that is a good deal and needs a lot of work, maybe you're better off putting a little more money into it, buying something that's a little more ready to go? Is that kind of what your experience has been?
So oddly, I often tell people, because they'll see pictures of my boat or get on it and oh, that's wonderful, I'd love to own a boat too. And the advice I give them is, I say one of two things: either buy a boat that's in relatively new condition, so you don't inherit problems. You can grow your own problems as you go along and learn from that. Or actually look into just renting a boat, fly down to the Caribbean or to Greece or someplace and rent a boat for 2 weeks and then turn it in when you're done. Either one of those is a better solution than buying an older boat and trying to fix it. Now, I say that having done it twice myself. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money to repair an older boat. You can do it, and it is a labor of love. And many people actually do that with their eyes wide open. They truly want to rescue, particularly if you've got a boat that has particularly good bones to it, the hull is sound, and you're willing to spend money, fixing all the fiberglass, fixing all the rigging, replacing engines, all the plumbing and electrical, all your instrumentation. If you're willing to do all of that, you're looking at, perhaps upwards of $100,000 for a large boat to be able to undertake something like that, or even more. So yeah, I recommend going for something a little newer rather than a little older. Although you'll learn a lot, there's a lot of expense there.
I imagine being retired and being a go-go guy and then thinking you're going to go off sailing, that the time is really valuable as well. I know that there's no making the boatyard do it fast. It takes what it takes and there's no way around.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just finished on my refit. I stripped the hull down because of blisters. I had been in the water for the last 4 years in New York Harbor. So completely refiberglass and filled, the hull and repainted. Did all the top sides, repainted that. Looks very nice. Came out well. All my through hulls were replaced. I replaced my shaft and strut. Replaced all the standing rigging. Put in a removable inner forestay so that I won't ever have the problem that I had before. New winches, all new spinnaker rigging, a new diesel generator, a new wind generator, fixed all my fiberglass chips and crack repair, engine service, new inverter, charger, new water maker, and all of that, just since last June. I am really looking forward to taking all of that. And I think it's next week I'll be able to push off from the dock and actually go sailing with this thing again.
That's great. You have a lot of family that you plan to cruise with, some or friends that are going to go with you?
Lots of friends who are willing to do, for me, it's about a 72, 75-hour run down to the Bahamas. So it's a pretty easy sail, just due south from where I'm, living in North Carolina. It's, I think, really easy to find somebody who's willing to do a short sail of, 3 or 4 days. Doing something like running out to Bermuda, which takes 5 or 6 days depending on wind. That's a bit more, so you've got to have somebody who's really willing to get thrown around for a bit. My family is not much in that category. They like it when I get to the nice places like Martha's Vineyard or Falmouth or Nantucket or the coast of Maine. When I get up there, they're happy to come fly up and join me for some coastal sailing, and the restaurants and whatnot, but not so much for those long offshore journeys.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And I've actually seen many new yachtsmen drag their wife into the Gulf Stream on a not so nice day, and that's the end of the boat. So I think flying the family into the boat, into the nice place, and you out there doing your dream is probably the best compromise.
Definitely works for me.
So you mentioned maybe even crossing the Atlantic. Are you thinking of doing some real extended voyages as well?
I am. I've worked. So one of the good things about taking an older boat and really doing a serious refit to it is I'm now intimately familiar with this thing I pulled the keel off of this thing previously and rebedded it. So there's not much on this boat that has not been seriously redone. I've even set it up. I've just purchased a Jordan drogue and put fittings on the stern of the boat so that I can literally hang this boat. It's got about a 20,000 pound weight with loading about 25,000 pounds. And so I now have attachment points that will take all of that. So even if I get into really bad weather, and I've got good weather systems to hopefully help me keep away from all of that, but at least I've got the safety and peace of mind to know that my emergency equipment is such that we could manage a crossing with a degree of comfort that we're not going to end up in the perfect storm movie.
Did COVID play a big factor in, how long it took to get your boat repaired? Do you think it would have been better in normal times?
Yeah, I believe it did. I've watched like many people, the supply chain has really slowed down. I mean, the reason that I'm not sailing my boat now is that I was waiting on a generator bracket that normally I would think would be pretty easy to get from the manufacturer. It took 4 months. Just for one part, and we just couldn't use the boat until, the generator was finished. I wasn't going to sail off and try to fix it myself. That's just one thing. There are all kinds of parts that just, as an example, I was putting much stronger cleats on the stern of the boat. And you couldn't get from the normal manufacturers the cleats that I wanted in stainless steel. So I ended up having to have those fabricated from, pieces of prop shaft with stainless steel bar put together, pacified, and then all ground down. So custom made stainless steel cleats are an example of not being able to get the supply chain to work for you for stuff that you would normally order and get within a month or so. I was getting the trim pieces for, I replaced all the hatches and ports on the boat. And that plastic trim piece that goes on the inside of these things, you'd think you just order that. Now that's a 3 to 4 month wait to get the manufacturer to provide those things. They just showed up in the mail last week.
Yeah, it's amazing how the smallest thing can hold up your project. So let's say it's a year from now or 2 years from now. Do you picture the boat having a kind of a home base, or are you just going to move the boat around and just cruise the world?
So my plan is to stay based, at least for the next 5 years, out of the southern part of North Carolina. It's a pretty good location for a variety of reasons, not the least of which you got a lot of places you can go. I do have the idea that I've got some friends that I've worked in when I worked for the United Nations over the last 5 years down in South America who have invited me to visit in Brazil and Uruguay. I think it'd be kind of cool to take a run down there, although I realize that's a long way with some interesting wind patterns as well. But it would be an awful lot of fun. And I definitely would love to go do the jump to Bermuda, the Portuguese Azores, from there up to Ireland. I'd even like to do the Loch Ness Canal, go through Scotland. That looked like it would be a lot of fun. Jump over into the Baltic, maybe do Denmark and come back through the Kiel Canal, go down into the Mediterranean, then go back across, the standard way, go to Tenerife, or you can go from a variety of places, jump off and go down to the Southern Caribbean and go back. I can do all of that Atlantic run in about 9 months if I time it right. I think that'd be an awful lot of fun, and I think I can find people to do, either through friends or through crew finding websites, see what I can do about getting people to do the little chunks of that. The long ones are going from the Canaries to the Southern Caribbean, and then those 2-week jumps across the Northern Atlantic or Mid-Atlantic. Those will be a little more challenging, and you definitely have to have people that either are quite adventuresome or have got the experience, or better yet, both.
Great. Well, thanks. That was very helpful. I think the new yachtsmen will enjoy hearing, your story, and maybe it'll encourage some others to actually get out there and do it. Thank you, everyone. please like and subscribe if you found this interesting, and you can send both of us questions down below.